Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Bluest Eye, written by Toni Morrison. Now, before I go into the summary and analysis of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, this novel, you have to pay very close attention to it as you're reading it, as you're going through it. It has more than one narrator. Claudia is one of the main characters within this novel, but she narrates from a child perspective at certain points within the novel, and at other points, she narrates from an adult's perspective. And then sometimes we get an omniscient narrator that tells us all the missing parts and the entire story completely. The other thing that you get from this novel that can be confusing at certain points is that it jumps around. It tells you the background stories of a lot of the characters or a lot of the main characters, so you get to understand them better and their impact on the Breedlove family, Pecola's family. So you have to pay close attention to what's happening, and really focus in on the background stories of the characters, because then you understand how they impact other characters. So the novel begins, and we first get introduced to Claudia and Frieda. These are black girls. They're Claudia is 9, Frieda is 10, and they're just living normal lives. And basically, Pecola gets introduced to them. Pecola is in the foster care system because her family is a mess. Her family is just horrible. And for a certain point in her life, for a while in her life, she was in the foster care system, and she ended up at Claudia's house. Claudia and Frieda take her in. They treat her like a sister. They do all the things that they can to make her happy, as best as they can. Claudia, we get to know more about her. She's this black girl that doesn't accept societal norms or societal expectations of beauty. At that time, the Bluest Eye was published in 1970, and in the year of 1970, and at the time, for from Claudia's perspective, we are told that Shirley Temple, or white girl dolls with blue eyes, were the societal standards for beauty. And if you wanted to be beautiful, you followed that look. Um, Frieda followed it. Frieda, Claudia's sister, she had no problem with it. She followed those standards. Claudia hated that. She's this black girl that destroyed white girl dolls. She hated them. For her, if you wanted to give her a present in Christmas, it's kind of like warm family moments. That's what's important to her. So whenever people gave her a white doll with blue eyes, she cut it up. She cut its head off or pulled its head off. Found the little box or little machine thingy that makes the doll talk and destroy it, basically. So Claudia does everything that she can to destroy white dolls that tell her what to look like. Frieda, that's all what she wants. That's all what she wants to be like. So we get to know those characters, and Claudia becomes our narrator. She's the one that tells the whole story. Pecola can't tell us her story by herself because, well, we'll get into that more as we talk about this book, but Pecola really can't tell us her story because it's very traumatic. What she goes through is unspeakable, and even she doesn't even understand what she goes through and what she went through as a child. Keep in mind, these kids are not even teenagers; they're young kids that they don't even understand the world that they live in. So Claudia tells us the story, and after we get introduced to her family, we kind of go back in time and we kind of get some background stories for other characters. We get the background story for Choli Breedlove, who is Pecola's father. We get the background story for Paula Breedlove, which is Pecola's mother. And Choli had a bad childhood. His mother didn't want him. They basically threw him away. His family saved them. They raised him. And at a certain point of his life, he just went on his own way and tried to live the best life that he can. So he's this kid that he wasn't really raised. His father didn't want anything to do with him. His mother didn't want to do anything with him. And, you know, he didn't know how to be a father. He didn't know how to be a husband. The thought of being married to one woman is something that was strange to him. And he has certain experiences in his life that really just make him detest and hate certain people, or even women for an instance, because there's this one instance when he was a kid where he was sleeping with a woman in the bushes, and two white men found him and they shined a flashlight, and he was, naked with this girl, and they forced him to keep sleeping with this girl. And he felt like he was nothing, he felt worthless, he felt shame, he felt anger, and that this kind of made his life, it made a dark part of his life stay with him for a very long time. It's an experience that really haunted him for a very long time, and pretty much until he died. Paula, on the other hand, she is this girl that loves to clean. She loves to organize things. She is not a beautiful woman. She's missing a lot of teeth. She gets a nail on her foot when she was young, and this makes her walk very in a weird way. Sammy Breedlove, who is Pecola's brother, she runs away a lot within this novel because you know his family is just horrible. What happens within the family is just horrible. Um, so that is Pecola's family. That's who they are. We get introduced to their home and where they live. They basically live in this store, and there's an apartment on top of the store. The landlord rented the store out to them to be their home, and there's like makeshift walls and makeshift living conditions for them to live. And it's a horrible and ugly little place that they have. They're poor; they can't really afford anywhere that's good. So they live there, and it's just the family is just dysfunctional. It's just horrible. Choli and Paula Breedlove, they're full on having WWE matches in this apartment, slamming each other on the floor, hitting each other with pans and pots, just having an all out brawl. Paula Breedlove, she literally pours water on Choli Breedlove, and he spears her, slams her on the ground. It's just an all out brawl. And Pecola, who's this little girl, she has to listen and hear all of this. Her parents cursing and yelling at each other. Sammy, he just runs away. He runs away at several points throughout the novel because he's just trying to escape this toxic environment that he lives in. Pecola can't really do anything about it. And this family, they don't just fight and have conflict amongst each other. The town that they live in, the society that they live in, the white people look down on them, the black people look down on them, everyone looks down on them because first of all, they're ugly. They're everybody says that they're the ugliest of the ugliest people. And they're black people, and the black people don't even talk to them or associate with them. And the family feels this, Choli feels this, Paula feels this, Sammy feels this. And the thing is, like, Pecola is even worse because if the Breedlove family is the bottom of the bottom, Pecola is even lower than that because her mother doesn't really show affection towards her father, doesn't show affection towards her. Her brother is just trying to escape this toxic place that he's in. And so Pecola is this girl within this novel that is just, she's alone. Her family, is pretty much treats her like trash. She doesn't have any friends at school. Her teachers don't look at her. Her teachers avoid her. No one sits next to her in class at lunch. The boys pick on her and tell her that she's ugly and tells her that she's worthless. So Pecola lives in this world that keeps on bullying her and just burying her 6 feet under, and she can't do anything about it. So the novel goes on, and we get to know more about the town that she lives in and the individuals that she knows. There is an apartment, of course, on top of Pecola's home, and three prostitutes live there. And basically, the prostitutes are the only friends that Pecola have, and they kind of teach her about love and lust and people in different places that exist in the world. And through these three prostitutes, that's how Pecola get to know about the world and men, and how the world works a little bit. Through Claudia, Pecola somehow in some way gains a friend, but it really doesn't last long. Claudia and Frieda, after a while, they kind of they desert Pecola and they can't associate with Pecola. What happens in the novel to really make things even worse than it was, to make life even more horrible than it was, is that Choli one night from coming home drunk because he's just this town drunk, this individual that just keeps on drinking to kind of survive within the house that he lives in, within the world that he lives in. He comes home drunk and he's trying to think to himself, why is Pecola so sad and why is her life so sad? Because he comes home, he finds her washing dishes at the sink, and he's like, in his drunk state, he's like, why is this little girl so sad? Why does she look so desolated? And, she has a home, she has food. Why is she so not happy? And basically, what he decides to do as her father is that he rapes her. And in some way, I think he thought that was supposed to be affectionate or supposed to help his daughter. Um, it's the part of the novel that's very grueling and very difficult to read, because this little girl doesn't know what's happening. She's not even a teenager. She doesn't know anything about anything. Her father, who's supposed to protect her and supposed to help her in this world, just comes home and rapes her, and she doesn't even know how to respond to this. She tries to fight him off, but she's this. She there's nothing that she can do about it. She falls unconscious when this is happening to her, and Trolley, he just does this, and he can't explain why he did it. It was a moment of lust, a moment of anger, a moment. His emotions were just in a knot, and he didn't know how to express them. And that's the way he just chose to express them. So from this heinous act, Pecola becomes pregnant, and Choli leaves the home, and the whole town knows about this and how what happened between father and daughter. Choli actually dies within the novel. Later in the novel, he dies. He dies in a workhouse. Sammy runs away permanently by the end of the novel. Paula doesn't really know what to do about this. The baby doesn't survive. The baby dies within the novel. And there's this test that Claudia and Frieda do to figure out if this baby would survive by planting flowers, but the flowers don't grow. So, you know, that's something right there. So the baby dies. Paula, it pretty much by the end of the novel, all that's left of the Breedlove family is Paula and Pecola, and Pecola basically goes insane because society has beat her down so much by the end of the novel. She has nowhere to turn to. There's this character that we're introduced to when we get this background story of him. His name is Soaphead Church. And Soaphead basically tells Pecola he's like this mystical individual, and he basically have cars going around that he's mystical and he can fix problems, he can fix illnesses, he can help you with any problem that you have. And Pecola goes to him within the novel, and Soaphead basically says, "I'm gonna give you blue eyes." And he's very cruel because he has this old dog that he wanted to kill. He bought poison to kill the dog, but he couldn't do it himself, so he pours this poison on this meat, and he makes Pecola go feed the dog. And he tells Pecola, "Listen, if something happens in this dog, that means you won't have blue eyes. If nothing happens, you won't have blue. If nothing happens, you will have blue eyes. But if something happens, you won't have blue eyes." Pecola goes and feeds this dog. The dog eats the meat and it dies. Pecola runs away, and basically she becomes insane after this, or mad, because you get this little excerpt within the novel where she's kind of like talking to herself and admiring herself of her blue eyes, but she doesn't really have blue eyes. But she's like, look, whenever she goes out in the street or she's looking at people in the street, she's trying to figure out if does anybody have bluer eyes than her. So she's like constantly looking for bluest eyes or who has the bluest eyes. And she's like debating in her mind or talking to herself, trying to figure out what if somebody lived miles away? What if somebody there has bluer eyes than me? So she's in this state where she's trying to convince herself that she has blue eyes, but she doesn't really. She was tricked by Soaphead, and she goes, yeah, she just loses her mind. She's basically crazy at this point, and the only way that she could have blue eyes and fill her wish is by losing her mind and believing that she has blue eyes, basically becoming blind to the world that's around her and creating her own world in her mind. And at the end, it's only her and her mother that live in this house, like on the outskirts of town by themselves. They're kind of like looked at as the trash family, the family that has no purpose, that has no value. Paula really, she doesn't like Pecola because even though Choli was a bad father and a bad husband, she didn't want him to leave. Um, she herself, she kind of gets away or escapes from this Breedlove family too, because her passion, her love, her reason for living exists in cleaning other people's houses. She gets a joy, a thrill out of keeping other people's, like rich white people's houses clean and pristine and taking care of their kids. And she sees her value in that and taking out care of other white and taking care of white people with money, with nice houses. And this one white family that she works for in the novel, that's what she sees as her purpose, as her value. She doesn't take care of her home. She loses interest in that, and she doesn't really take care of Pecola or her kids. And this is what happens. Even it's even magnified when Choli and Sammy are gone. So the novel ends in this way where no one pays attention to Pecola. Everybody in the town that she lives in see her as a just an abomination because they know what her father did to her. It's a good thing in some way that the baby didn't make it, because if the baby did make it, the whole town would just come upon them in just with just fire, because to the town it was an abomination. And it besides that, the town already saw them as this family that was ugly beyond ugly, ugly to the point where there's no fixing it basically. And so Pecola had to carry on the weight, the hatred of white society, black society, her town, her community, and she lost her mind over it because no one. I mean, you could say that Claudia and Frieda for a while helped her and tried to be her friends for a while, but even them, after they heard of what happened between Choli and Pecola, they deserted her. They didn't really spend time with her or be her friend anymore. The prostitutes, you could also say, were her friends for a while, but when Pecola becomes crazy and becomes mad and loses her mind, she doesn't really have anybody to communicate to but herself. The excerpt where we kind of see Pecola narrate or become the narrator, she kind of tells herself that she has no friends and she has no one to talk to and she only has herself. She can't go back to school, because she was carrying a baby at like 12 years old. So she was on her own, and the novel basically ends with her on her own, Claudia narrating to us the whole story and what happened, and the omniscient narrator telling us the whole story and what happened and how their life ended up this way. With Pecola endlessly trying to find blue eyes or trying to convince herself that she has blue eyes, but she doesn't, and losing her mind. And that's the bluest eye. In terms of analysis of the significance of this novel, it's the first thing you have to think about, the first thing that you have to look at is how significant societal norms can be. The society, the town that Pecola lives in, you know, white skin, blue eyes, those are the things that, everybody seek after. Even the black girls, they try to make their hairdos the same as what they see on TV. Paula, when she used to go to the movies, she used to see these perfect white families, and they try to imitate that. So on TV, you get this image, this portrait of beauty that you're supposed to follow. And when you're black and you're looking at this portrait of beauty of with people with different skin color, different hair texture, it's hard to imitate. It's hard to be that. And when you are kind of conditioned to think that's the only definition of beauty, and there's no alteration to it, you kind of feel stuck, and there's no other answer. And if you can't meet the standards that you're seeing on TV, that you're seeing in school, that you're seeing that society upheld, um, you know, there's no way out for you. There's nothing you can do about it. And Pecola, the only thing that she saw as beautiful, the only thing that society portrayed to her as beautiful is blue eyes, white skin, white culture. And she wanted to be a part of that, but there's nothing that she could do to be a part of that. That's why she goes to Soaphead for the cure or for an answer, but he can't do anything for her. You can't change the genetics. So she ends up going insane because nobody loves her. Nobody has ever shown her some compassion, warmth, or anything. She's just been in the world, and anybody that she had close to her that showed her some compassion for here and there, they all deserted her. They all left her to be by herself. The Breedlove family is nothing at the end of the novel, because everyone's escaped. Charlie's dead. Sammy escaped, and he's living on his own. Paula has her cleaning and her taking care of rich white individuals, and Pecola has nothing. She had to become insane, become mad to have blue eyes in her mind. So the burden of society, the demand of society for things that you should have or things that you need to be, it can really affect an individual's life. And specifically, Pecola, she had no way out because, first of all, society saw her as ugly. She couldn't change anything about it. She couldn't do anything about it. And so her life ended in a very negative way. And so there's a lot you have to take from that. I mean, Claudia, her perspective is to reject it, to reject the societal norm, to reject the way that society tried to view her, and define herself and define her beauty the way she wanted to, not the way that people wanted to. And that's very significant because it also says a lot about choice. You can choose to follow society's norm of beauty, of what beauty is, and of what you can define it as, and forge your identity in that, or you could choose to form your own version or your own definition of beauty and live through that. This is what Claudia does. She forms her own identity and her own definition of beauty. But the other thing is you have to take account that the way that the society, the town that Pecola lives in, the way that they enforced um, blue eyes and white skin and white culture, it's heavy because the teachers look down upon Pecola, her parents look down upon Pecola, all the black people look down upon Pecola. She had no way out and no way of escape. Soaphead couldn't help her. No one could help her. So she lost her mind. So that's my summary analysis of The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.